India is about to host the 2026 edition of the BRICS Summit. Now, in this article, we are not going to talk about the details of BRICS because we will be covering them in the coming few discussions. What we are going to talk about is the main theme of this article, which is also very important, and maybe right now UPSC is moving away from generic questions to more agenda based questions regarding international organizations and groupings. Now, when we talk about the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, UPSC has time and again questioned regarding the security and the various related aspirations of the SCO to combat terrorism. So let us actually talk about how BRICS and science and technology ecosystem is related. Now you know guys that the recent 2026 BRICS summit, which is going to take place in India, the main theme of the same is resilience, innovation, cooperation and sustainability. And that is exactly why we are talking about the second pillar of our theme. And mind you guys, the themes in recent times in UPSC prelims have become very important, because in 2024 and also in 2025 prelims, they are right now focusing on different types of questions on international institutions. They are asking on themes, they are asking on what are the various names of agreements, they are asking on where the particular summit is held, and also they are asking about the various amounts of sub-agreements of the various summits. So let us actually talk on one very important matter that will dominate this 2026 BRICS summit. So when we talk about the BRICS 2026 summit as of now, let us actually talk about briefly what the members of BRICS initially. Firstly, we know that the inner circle of the BRICS is actually Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa, who actually founded, kind of the BRICS here. Now, the main founders were Brazil, Russia, India and China. South Africa happened to be included later on. Also, when we talk about the expanded membership of the BRICS in 2024, we have had new members in Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran and UAE. There were also talks of Saudi Arabia joining in officially, but Saudi Arabia has still been hesitant to be a full-time member of this particular organization. Now, because the Saudi Arabia is also very close partner with the US and the Western groups here, and that is why there are so many amount of pressures on the country to be a part of the BRICS or not. Also in 2025, Indonesia formally joined the BRICS too. Also in the same terms, the BRICS membership was expanded to include Argentina too, but it declined to be more close with the US and Israeli policies. Now, when we have talked about the membership here, which are very important for your prelims, we right now let us move on to the main topic. Why BRICS and science and technological innovation is very important for 21st century. Mainly in the age of techno-nationalism, where the countries right now are coming up with new technologies such as artificial intelligence, blockchain technology. Also, there are various other countries who are focused on critical minerals. So, countries right now are taking advantage of their own advantage in technology. For example, US would not want the rise of China in AI, right? And that is why US over a period of time have had so many export controls. For example, reducing the number of NVIDIA's graphics cards or graphical processing units to China. And China has been facing this export ban of semiconductors since the time of Joe Biden. So US is very jealous of China getting ahead in the AI race. So that is why we are in the age of techno-nationalism, where the national policies regarding technologies are right now determined by jealousy, selfishness and mainly in national interests. Also, when we talk about the various sanctions which the Trump administration loves to impose. Also, let us talk about the sanctions which the Donald Trump administration loves to impose on everyone. Firstly, they imposed restrictions on their own US universities, and due to which even various popular universities such as Harvard, MIT, they protested against the Trump administration's sanctions and tariffs and the funding cut to such universities. And this means that the US government is cutting off the scientific access to crucial technologies if at all the US government suspects that those universities or those researchers or those research groups and firms, they are using the technology to give the technology to some other countries. So what the US government, and not only the US government here, we are also talking about the European Union, what they are trying to do is they are trying to keep the technology with themselves. And in this we are trying to get a theme that mainly the developed countries, the Western countries, they want and try to keep the technologies with them so that the developing countries such as India and China do not get their hands on the same. Also, at the end of the day, we hear of Apple, we hear of Microsoft, we hear of so many other companies migrating away from countries such as China who are hostile. They are migrating to their friends. For example, Apple is coming to India. Also, most importantly, what Apple right now is doing over a period of time, say around 10 to 15 years from now, they are hoping to shift their entire silicon manufacturing, iPhone manufacturing to US and to places near the US, and also sometimes in India also, because India is an US ally. Now, what we are trying to observe in these three phenomena is that the developed countries are trying to have more control over these new age technologies, and that is why BRICS, which is actually a very important initiative and a grouping of like-minded developing countries, is trying to break. Now, the main architecture of the BRICS Science and Technological Innovation Cooperation can be found in so many initiatives of the BRICS. Firstly, we have the STIEP working group, where we have various amount of research plans. We have a collaborative action plan on the research and development that should be taking place between the 10 BRICS members. Also, when we talk about the BRICS Technological Transfer Center, which is perhaps one of the most important centers which is trying to promote STI cooperation within the BRICS itself, it is trying to take various technologies which the various members of the BRICS develop between themselves, and then this particular technology transfer center, the TTC, they try to commercialize it. They try to bring in various private sector and try to actually understand how that particular science and research can be made at a commercial level, so that the researchers, the universities, and at the end of the day, the countries, they actually earn something out of the same. And at the end of the day, we have to understand, the more amount of technological commercialization we have in a country, the more amount of economic manpower and the resources, and at the end of the day, the tax revenues that particular country would be having. Also, we have the BRICS Institute of Future Networks, which is focused on information, communication and technology, mainly in the age of 5G and 6G technologies, and also the age of AI, which depends on high performance computing. We also will be covering a very important article on data centers on AI, where we will be understanding what amount of incentives and funding we actually need to realize the dream of even one AI data center in the country. So that is exactly why the BRICS Institute of Future Networks will be focusing on. Next, we have the New Development Bank, which is, we can tell that it is kind of the World Bank of the BRICS. You know that the World Bank gives various developmental finances and the loans to various low developing countries and the poorer nations in the country, and also to the developing economies in the entire world. The New Development Bank is also trying to do the same. Now here, the New Development Bank is trying to finance various infrastructural projects when it comes to information communication technology. Also, the China BRICS Research Center on New Quality Productive Forces recently was inaugurated at Beijing, and it is trying to focus on university to university ties and exchange of information and technological research. And finally, we have the iBRICS initiative, which is trying to have more innovation, and via that innovation, how we can focus more on entrepreneurship. That is where we are trying to commercialize the same. So these are all the basic and the static initiatives that we have. Now, what are the various initiatives? That is why the BRICS is not yet able to catch up with the Western countries. Now we know that Russia, China, Brazil, South Africa, we also have Indonesia, we have Iran, we have Egypt, we have India here. Besides this, we know that the population of the entire world is concentrated in these countries itself. Despite that, we are having so many amount of structural weaknesses in actually conceptualizing the science and technological steps and the initiatives taken at the BRICS level. Firstly, you know, at BRICS we have a rotational presidency. That means every year the presidency of BRICS actually changes. Now, you know that this year is India's presidentship, next year it will be somebody else. So this means that every year when the presidency changes, the agenda also changes. India right now is trying to focus on innovation. India is trying to focus on sustainability under the BRICS framework in this year itself. In the next year, someone else will be hosting under something other agenda. So let us actually fix the presidentship of the BRICS for some certain amount of years to one president itself. So there, that particular country can take more broader initiative. For example, EU has a same program under the same, the EU Horizon Initiative, which is trying to promote more and more research and development in the European Union, where there are so many countries under the EU. Each of the countries, they take responsibility to actually focus on more and more amount of research development. Now, the second issue is of financing. You know, China is doing very good when we talk about research and development in their own sector. For example, when we talk about the private sector and the comparison of India with the rest of the world, in India, only 41% is the limit according to the Economic Survey 2025-26. Compare it with China, US and South Korea. They are way more ahead. And also right now we have to understand, if our private sector is not investing in research and development, we are losing out on technology. And right now in the recent world, technology is the new currency of the world, right? Technology is also a weapon right now, because when we talk about AI, when we talk about critical minerals, when we talk about various new and emerging technologies such as 6G, these are all dependent on, you know, proper amount of expertise of a country. So if India is ahead in all of this, India should not be worrying about the future. But we are not, right? And that is exactly what we have to understand. If there are some countries such as US who are very expert in this kind of technologies, so they are weaponizing this kind of supply chains, right? They are trying to control via export controls. And that is where we have to understand a very sad reality. India's expenditure in R&D is only at 0.64, right? Now when we talk about the US, China and South Korea, they are way ahead. Look at South Korea. They are spending around 5% of their GDP on research and development, right? And that is a very, very serious case that India is lagging behind. Also, the third reason is that, you know, in BRICS, we have so many countries with so many interests. Even we have India and China who are diametrically opposite sometimes to each other on various amount of issues, right? So we have also various new members right now. For example, we are talking about Iran, Indonesia, Ethiopia. Right now we have seen how various crises is going on in Iran. So they cannot devote their proper time and energy in this summit right now, right? They cannot commit to various amount of financial obligations. Also talk about Indonesia and Ethiopia. They are permanent members. They can have divergent various interest in their own scientific capacity, right? They can have their own political priorities. Even right now we understand that Saudi Arabia is not yet a full member of the same. So there is a kind of a fragmented discussion within the BRICS. All the BRICS members, they must be coming together instead of having different interests, right? Also, as of the recent research proposal in December 2025, only Egypt and Iran showed interest. The rest of the members, they did not. So that means there is a lack of clear consensus in the BRICS itself. Also, maybe that lack of interest is stemming from a commercialization gap. That Technological Transfer Council that we have just looked at, right? Their amount of success in scaling up the AI technologies, in scaling up the various amount of technologies within the BRICS countries, right? It has not been very successful. And at the end of the day, right, we do not have a kind of a monitoring of the various amount of achievements when we talk about the science and technological and innovation programs, correct? And that is where, for example, if we talk about the ocean research or the polar research or the deep sea mining, that we all should be collaborating in this Indian Ocean region, Pacific and Atlantic region, that is not being properly developed. And that is where the main way forward is in the hands of India, because India is hosting this 2026 BRICS summit. So that is why India should be right now pushing for a permanent STI secretariat. For the majority of the various roles and responsibility of the BRICS, for example, say the New Development Bank or various other initiatives related to, say, economic, spending and other initiatives. We have a permanent secretariat where there are particular offices dedicated for those responsibilities. But for science and technology initiative, we do not have the same. So India can actually try to set the main secretariat of a STI, most possibly in India itself, right? So that we have more presence of various multilateral institutions and their offices within India. And this will be countering China's dominance. Also, let us come with a global governance on AI framework within the BRICS itself, so that India can actually take leadership, and also India can take advantage of our own India's domestic AI mission, which also we'll be looking at into the next few articles. And at the end of the day, let us talk about the new members. Let us actually talk with Saudi Arabia to become a permanent member right now. Let us talk about including more new members, if possible, even the various other countries in the Middle East and also more countries from Africa, so that we can actually share our AI expertise, technological expertise, financial expertise, right? We can actually take a very, very major leap in India's global South leadership, right? Also, biotechnology, climate finance, they can be much more made better, right? And they can be made much more in sync with India's own domestic priorities. For example, we have the Bio E3 policy. We have the various technological developments, for example, 2025-2026 Union Budget Initiative to have more and more carbon capture, utilization and storage, where we are trying to have a better amount of carbon trading market in the country. So let us focus on those amount of technology and try to partner with the various Latin American nations and African nations and even with the European nations as a part of the BRICS. Also, let us promote more and more gross research development. Let us actually, for example, if India is having a very low R&D expenditure, let us partner with some of the various other BRICS countries to bring in more investments in the country in research and development. So that is exactly where India can actually move from a technology taker to that of a technological maker, right? So we have this opportunity right now. Right now, we can have this STI framework to be more and much more evolved, like we have the EU Horizon program. We have talked about this before also. It has a very big funding budget, right? It has a permanent secretariat, right? And it is actually very, very rigorous. It has a lot of networks of researchers, academicians, private companies and government officials, and also various experts from the rest of the world. So we can also have the same as a part of the EU. And looking at the way forward like this that we have seen right now can actually give India much more confidence in clearing and developing the framework for the same. Now let us actually practice a mains question, then move on to the prelims pointers.